It's my pleasure to welcome you today. As you might know, we're ready for you from across the nation, and we'll be discussing the biggest stories that Nigeria has seen in the past 6 months. If you've never joined the Roundtable, you are wrong, because the Roundtable is when we bring together all the big names that you hear on radio to speak with you for about 2 hours, and we've got you covered today from now till 12 noon. Welcome. Now today, and for this Roundtable, we're having a very unique edition, which means that I'm having our OAPs, the big names that you hear across the country, also joining me here on the show. They're joining me from right here in Lagos. They're joining me from Port Harcourt. They're joining me from Kano. They're joining me everywhere you find Nigeria info. Oh, no, tell me. You didn't know we have Nigeria info aside Lagos, did you? We do. And so they're all joining me from all of our stations across the country to do this together. Yeah, pardon. All right, yeah, so we are set, and you can join the show live right now. If you go on to Facebook or to YouTube, you can join us live right now and join the show. Let's get started. For today, I have my they're going to be my guests today. They usually host on their own shows, but today they are my guests, and they'll be joining me. Let me start by introducing my guys here in Lagos who will be joining me. Ufuoma Egbamuno is the head of news here in Lagos. He's joining me online over Skype. Ufuoma, can you hear me? Good morning. Ufuoma, can you hear me? Is Ufuoma there? Okay, while it's getting warmed up.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
That's the vibe I need on the show today. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's trash all the big stories that Nigeria has faced this year. Also joining me from Lagos will be Emmanuel Onwuka. He's one of our top reporters here. All the breaking news you hear, Emmanuel is there covering it for us. So he'll be here also talking to us about what he reported this year.
Hello, Wemimo.
Hey.
Nice to be your guest today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you here, Emmanuel. Thank you for joining in. Let's go on to Port Harcourt, where Obavire is waiting for me, and she's the host of the Morning Crossfire in Port Harcourt. And good morning, and thank you for joining us here in Lagos.
All right, quickly, you're hearing the voice of Eno now because she unavoidably will be absent. My name is Ifiemi Andrews. So, yeah, I also anchored the Morning Crossfire in her absence a few times. So, yeah, thank you very much, regardless.
Good to have you here.
And hello to everyone.
Hello. Welcome, Ifiemi. Welcome to Lagos. I can welcome you to Lagos, even if you're not here physically. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, digitally.
That's it. So we're going to have a blast today. Now, let's head over to Abuja, where Femi D is joining me. He's a host of the Morning Crossfire in Abuja. Femi, hello. Good morning.
Hello, Wemimo.
Good morning
to you. Good to join the guys in Lagos.
Absolutely.
And of course, Abayomi Akigbola is also here as well this very morning.
Abayomi, good morning.
Good morning, Wemimo. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Let's have a blast now, shall we? We promised Lagosians a blast, and they are going to have a blast. By the way, this is why I really love this edition of the Roundtable. It's going around Nigeria. All the biggest names you hear on radio are joining us. And so you should quickly now head over to our live stream on Facebook, because you can see all the guys in Abuja and Port Harcourt and here in Lagos. Today, we have quite a number of stories to look at. If it's your first time on the Roundtable, what we do is that we look at the biggest issues that have happened. We do like a throwback thing, right, at those stories, how it went down, what we, the presenters, feel about those stories, and we would also like to hear your thought about them. Now, for today, we have quite a number of issues. We're looking at building collapse in Lagos, in Delta, and across the country, and how these affected Nigerians, and how these, of course, also made us feel. One of the other biggest stories to look at today is the political party primaries that we had in the country this year. There were a lot of intrigues around that. We look at those intrigues across the country. Tertiary education shuts down. ASU has been on strike, and we're going to be talking about how that also went down. We'll also be looking at Nigerians who were stranded in Russia. due to the ongoing war. By the way, that war is still ongoing between Russia and Ukraine. Nigerians were struck in Ukraine. Look at all of the details of how that happened, what they went through, and how Nigeria got some of them repatriated back to Nigeria. Now, let's get started because we're absolutely ready for you. Let's start off with building collapse in Lagos. Now, we've had quite a number of building collapses across the country, but this one is unique because in Lagos it's quite a thing to have houses come down, and many times you just wonder what is going on. We had a very big one this year that happened in the Ibro area of Ikoyi on Gerald Road, and this was a very, very, very catchy story because it involved the elite. So usually you'd hear buildings coming down, in areas, usually on Lagos Island, sometimes on the mainland also, but they usually involve what you call the masses. This time it was a building that involved the elite, the top names that you can't reckon with. Emmanuel was there covering. I can almost call Emmanuel the breaking news guy, right? He's always there when there's a breaking news. Emmanuel, let's talk about that building collapse on Gerald Road. Let's take it from the very beginning when we heard that a building had gone down. Of course, you're always on high alert to go cover that report for us. So fill us in on how it went down, what you saw when you went there, and a bit of the details of what happened right after. Emmanuel, if you're ready, you take it on.
Yeah, so I remember that very afternoon. I was feeling a bit dizzy that afternoon, actually. And the next thing was notification that a building had just collapsed. My Ufuoma Egbamuno sent me a message and told me that, hey, building collapsed at the Ikoyi building. Like, you needed there ASAP. I jumped up, got a vehicle. I couldn't even use the company vehicle that day. I had to just book a ride, rush down there, had to drop the ride off like midway because I had to do a lot of trekking. There was a lot of traffic because of that, because of the building collapse along the Gerald Road. And I had to walk down to where you have the incident, and it was just like a pity party. The place was choked with a lot of people. At that time, the dust was just settling. I was trying to hear, everybody was talking at the same time. It's what you can literally call a madhouse at that very beginning. Everybody is trying to say what they saw or what they heard. People are just all over the place. And at the same time, you're seeing rescue workers, trying to do their duties. It was really a very, very, very sore incident. I can visualize it. As I'm speaking right now, I can visualize it. I can visualize it, right now. I worked there. I was able to get to one of the persons. I remember helping, some last mile officials and some of the rescue workers to remove a car that was along the road. Like, there was no way to access the car, and the truck was going to, an excavator was trying to pass through, to get to the collapsed building. And there was no way, anybody could help remove that vehicle. I remember that I saw a part of the vehicle, like the glass, had come down, and I put my hands through that glass to just try and see how I can open the door of the vehicle. And that was how they were able to gain access and push that vehicle out of the way. And that was how they were able to access that building. I remember that incident so clearly. So I was not just there to just report, everyone was just participating. There were other reporters, other journalists there, just trying to pick information. I remember the first wave of families that came down, at that very, at the sites there that day, people who had heard that on social media that the building had collapsed, and they had family members who were present there, and they rushed down and they were in tears, they were shouting. You couldn't tell them nothing. They wanted to assess the site. You see, the police had a whole field day just trying to stop people from accessing the site and letting rescue operations go on smoothly, because everybody was willing to help. Everybody wanted to do things by themselves. It was totally a madhouse. The figures of persons inside the place, inside the building at that very point in time was so bloated. Like it was. I was hearing 115. I was hearing 100. I had to just be careful about the numbers that was being reported. I had to make sure that I get to the officials, who were, stipulated with rescue operations to actually get the right figures, so I don't go cause panic, to members of the public, and then go put out there an overbloated figure.
Yeah.
So the rescue operations continued. You had the deputy governor coming at that very point later that evening. People were angry that the rescue operations did not begin on time. Everybody was contributing. Everybody was saying what they wanted to say. More family were coming to the scene. And then it spilled onto the night, And I remember at about 12 a.m. I had to leave because it began raining. I had to leave. At that very point in time, they were able to get, I think, 1 or 2 persons out of it. And then the other persons were stuck underneath the building. I came back to that place at about 5 a.m. the next day. I got to that place 5 a.m. the next day. And I walked around that place because there were less police officers, there were less persons around the place because the rain had driven them, away the previous night. And I walked around the building collapse, and then I was with some officials, and the next thing we started hearing voices. I still hear that guy's voice. Like I really try to, detach myself from my stories, when I'm covering incidents of disaster. But anytime I think about this incident, I literally hear that guy's voice in my head again and again, crying, "Help us." He kept crying, "Help us." You could hear his voice. So we were walking around the place, just trying to see if we could figure out, the exact place where he was. The exact place where he was, so that we could tell the rescue guys, because at that very point in time, the operations had not commenced that morning. Okay, there were some persons went to refresh and come back, and they said they had to wait a while because they wanted to use live detecting equipment to actually find out the exact spot those persons were. And that was the situation. We were hearing the voices. We were angry. We had, even though there were journalists there, and I was a journalist, I was angry because there was nobody on ground and we were hearing voices.
I know that, Emmanuel, for you, this is almost like reliving the moment all over again. I remember when you sent in the clip of the voice of someone under the rubble, and I know how I felt, and I can imagine how you felt. I mean, being there, hearing someone under the rubble crying for help. Now in 2022,
literally you could not do nothing
about it. In 2022, we had quite a number of recorded cases of building collapse in Lagos. It was quite incidental. May 17th, there was a building collapse around the Olorunda local government council area in Lagos. Ilogbo, that's what the place is called. It was an unoccupied story building. No casualties recorded, luckily. Also, a 2-story building collapsed in Lagos on the 7th of May. 10 people were killed. It was around 3 a.m. We also had another 3-story building collapsed. 5 people died. 2 people were rescued. This was in February of this year. We also had a building collapse at Ibadan Street in Ebute Metta. Also in May, about 20 people were rescued alive. Number of persons sustained injuries. Let me go to Ufuoma. You sit and man the newsroom in Lagos State. So when these stories come in, you need to assign and then stay on top of the story, like Nigeria Info always does. One of the biggest issues that come out from building collapses, because we're still starting from Lagos, is the alertness of government officials, the speed with which we can rescue people who are trapped, the equipment available, and the manpower. So let's look at the various building collapses we've had this year. How do you assess government's readiness in terms of emergency control?
I would say almost, if I was to rate government's reaction or emergency services, their reactions to these building collapses, I would say 2.5 or 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
It is just, it just shows you to a large extent, it's a mirror of what Nigeria as a whole actually is. How unprepared we can be sometimes, how In fact, not just sometimes, almost all the time. We are almost never prepared. Emergency services, you hear the manual there, talk about how they were literally standing and hearing people's voices. They had to wait for hours, before rescue operation would start. Sometimes human beings and vehicles will block the entrances or the areas where these emergency services need to get in. Sometimes, it's a fire incident and there's no water. There's really no water to actually put out the fire. You'd have to wait. So rating government's reactions, to these issues, I would say 2.5, 3 over 10. These things have happened over and over again, such that you think that we would learn lessons. Unfortunately, I'm pretty certain, this is not me trying to predict doom, but I'm pretty certain we're going to have another building collapse anytime soon, because the incidents, will keep happening. Constructors will keep building houses without permission. Government officials would give out permissions to build these houses without doing the necessary background checks. So these things will keep coming. Unfortunately, like I said, it's a problem. And for me, as not just for me personally, but for the newsroom, having to sit down and cover these stories repeatedly, having to talk about the number of casualties. In fact, I think on our newsroom program that we do every Monday, for about 4 or 5 weeks straight up, it was one bad story or the other. It was one building collapse, one fire building, fire incident, I should say, or one market burning. It's gone on and on and on. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have the necessary antidote.
Unfortunately. Now let's go on to Delta State, where we also recorded quite a number of collapses in Nigeria this year. And I'm coming to Femi, I'm going to Ifiemi in Port Harcourt. Now, we had a church building collapse this year in January. That was near Asaba, Okmanam community. In Oshimili North Local Government area. There was also a 3-story building collapse in Amachi community around that area. It was on Wednesday, the 22nd of June, after a downpour. There was a building collapse. So, building collapses appear to now be a thing in Nigeria. Let's talk about how the government handles the same down there in the south. Talk to us, Ifiemi, about the building collapses, the reportage of the story, the aftermath of those collapses, the response of government, and does it look like the government is ready to prevent any further collapses?
All right, thank you very much. I think to answer you directly, I don't think the government is doing anything that at least we can see to say they want to ensure that they act swiftly or they prevent these things from happening again. Here in Port Harcourt, we've also had similar problems with building collapsing. And the worst part of it is the fact that after these things happen, you only find people trying to, do what they can to save victims. And then you hear the story go on for days. People talk about it. Oh, this thing happened. Jesus. And all of those. That's what you hear, basic Nigerian too. And you just have statements from government. Oh, a committee would be set up. A white paper would be, drafted. The government would tell you we are doing this and that. And after a couple of months, everything dies down naturally, and Nigerians move on as well. Everybody move on to the next thing. We're just living our lives like nothing happened before. The fact that it happened over and over again, and then put in mind the terrain that we're in, especially here in the South, where to put up a building, it requires a lot of work. You're beginning to wonder what's happening with government agencies. Who is ensuring that the individuals who put up these structures get the appropriate approval from the agencies that they have to before they put these things? Who is going out there to inspect the work being done? The engineers carrying out this work. Oh, the foundation for this building, is this supposed to carry this sort of weight? What is involved? All of these details. You'll find that corruption in perhaps the various ministries or various government agencies that are supposed to be handling this could, you say, be responsible for what we're seeing now, not just in the Niger Delta, not just in the South, but across the country. Unfortunately, I would say we haven't really heard much of building collapse in the northern parts of the country. Maybe the terrain is to their advantage, but To say that government is putting together a plan or government is doing what it ought to do, I would completely disagree. Ufuoma was giving them 2.5. I would say 1.5. There's no plan, no preparations. It's just the regular circle we've always had. People feel bad, people complain, government put out statements, agencies apologize, the police tell you we're doing what we need to do. Everybody says we'll get the culprits. Till date, building the collapse here in Rivers State, what has happened to the owners of that building, nobody knows. The victims afterwards, who is compensating them? Who is ensuring that justice is served? Who is seeing that the next person putting up a building follows due process? These things are not on ground.
So it looks like we are continuously in emotion, expecting disaster to happen. We put out the papers, we said put out the statements, and then we just relax and wait on for the next one.
That's how it looks like. That's how it looks like. And clearly, if we continue on that path, it's very painful to say, but we would just continue to mourn a lot of people who would pass on for no fault of theirs, just because some people in government or in certain agencies do not do what they ought to do. The town planners, the community development commissions, and the rest of them. When people, I want to put up a structure, I come to you, you come, you look at the land, and you do the soil testing to ensure that the kind of structure I'm planning to put on this land is something that the soil can carry. Who does these things? Who monitor these things? We do not know. We do not see. Perhaps we have the agency that is ought to do that business, but are they doing it? I don't think they are.
It's almost obvious that they're not. It's almost obvious. And this is not just Lagos. This is you telling us about what goes on in the south. I'm going on to Femi D now. So there is a general impression that, maybe Abuja is better put together. Maybe the layout is just better in Abuja. Maybe somebody is doing their jobs in Abuja. Maybe that's why we've not gotten so many. This year, we've not gotten records of building collapses from Abuja. So maybe there's one or two things we can learn from there. So Femi, tell us, in Abuja, in terms of layout of buildings and structures, getting the correct permits, building the right way, averting disasters that could be avoided. Teach us one or two things that we can learn from Abuja. Maybe there's something we're not paying attention to in the rest of the country.
Well, when you say teach us, it scares me.
I know, right?
Well, I think one of the things that has become quite interesting about Abuja thus far is the fact that we've had the opportunity of having quite, civil and architectural buildings monitored more stringently. There's always this notion of if you build in the wrong place, somebody in the FCT may look at you or report you and the likes of that. So it makes it a little bit different. And because there's the concept of, there's a master plan. So you find people interpreting what would be a master plan in their own way to try and make sure that it doesn't go out of what they call a master plan and interpret it to say, I'll build correctly, I'll make sure I don't have a house that is coming down. Now, also, another thing of interest is, so Abuja was not really a city like Lagos compared in the early 90s. Abuja was not in the picture, Abuja was curated, carefully curated. It cannot be compared to like Port Harcourt, Lagos, or Kano, where you have the ancient city of Kano, where people's building structures and ideas over the years and decades. May change or did not change. But Abuja is not even up to 40 years per se. So what you would have is a lot of the buildings are in the same kind of classification and the same kind of concept. So you don't find people have that misadventure of saying, I'm just going to build a mod house next to a Mitama house. I'm giving an example. So you don't find that happening. You find Abuja being a place where people are identified and say, this area is a highbrow area. So if I come and build my BQ here, everybody will know that I'm not so much of an earner per se. So you find that cluster along the lines of what you earn a little bit more evident in Abuja than ever before. And then you also find the fact that You really can't live in Abuja if you can't afford to build a proper house because things are expensive. So if you are going to build a house, just build the one that will stand the test of time, the test of weather, the test of water, or anything at all.
Because you don't want to save up all that money and then someone comes to bring it down. But apparently in places in like Lagos and Port Harcourt, anything goes. I mean, nobody's really paying attention anyway. So you're just gonna build something and hope that by God's grace it doesn't come down. You know, that's unfortunately what we get to live by. All right, the show is on. This is the Roundtable. If you're just joining us and you're wondering what's going on your radio, I've brought to you all our biggest names, some of our biggest names from across the country on Nigeria Info. You've been listening to the Roundtable for 3 days. That's happening for the very first time. And we're doing this together with a big shot from Abuja and Port Harcourt joining me live right now. So quickly run over to Nigeria Info social media pages, our Facebook, our YouTube pages. We're live streaming on the Nigeria Info Lagos, Port Harcourt and Abuja platforms. You see us live right now. We'll be reading your comments as we go along, so be sure to leave us your thoughts about all of these stories and how you want to interact with them. I'd love to read from you. Now, let's go talk education. I'm trying to build a momentum. I know what you're all waiting for, but let's get there. Let's take a ride until we get there. Let's move on to education. This year, ASU finally had enough. They gave us a love note on the 14th of February. It was like they planned it like, wait, let's do Valentine's Day for you guys, but just just drop the towel and say we won't have any more. Now, ASU went on strike since the 14th of February this year. Today is the 28th of June. ASU is not back. There is no resolution in sight. Oh, well, some talk back and forth, but nothing has happened so far. Now, university students, I mean, myself, when I was in school, I went to OAU. So when you're going to OAU, you are told if you have a 4-year course, so just say 4 years plus X, because you don't know what could happen anywhere around the corner. So strikes happen to be a thing for us here in Nigeria, but this one has been here for quite a number of months now. It doesn't look like there's a resolution inside. Let's talk about that strike, the ASU strike, the argument on the payment system with which lecturers should be paid. The argument on both sides is to say lecturers are insisting on a payment platform that suits them, which they believe would work with their own unique sector. The federal government says, you are federal government workers. We're going to pay you on the same IP system that we use for all federal government workers. Now, this is the biggest issue in this deadlock, and there isn't a resolution yet. Ufuoma, I'm starting with you. ASU is not giving up. The government is not giving up. In fact, it almost looks from where I stand like the government is just like, when people are tired, you go back to work, right? There's no resolution in sight. Let's look at the core issue first, the payment system. Do you think the government should be using another payment platform for lecturers, although they are government workers, when every other person is being paid under IPs? Why do we need UTAS for lecturers? Isn't that going overboard? If doctors ask for their own payment platform, and teachers ask for their own payment platform, and engineers ask for their own payment platforms, are we not going to be having quite a mess on our hands? You need to unmute yourself, Ufuoma.
Okay,
good.
You can hear me now, yeah?
I can.
Okay, so I think that it's actually absurd in 2022 that we are one of the issues why university students, are at home is that the government cannot have a bit of agreement with the teachers union on payment platform. It is mind-boggling that that's one of the issues we have in 2022.
Yeah.
But that's a totally different subject. ASU has consistently maintained that the system of payment put out by the federal government is in fact one of them actually told me was a scam. That's what he told me privately. Yes, that's what he told me privately. They say they do not have confidence in it, and that they've also done tests with the payment platform that they've suggested to the government. It's Nigeria made, done by Nigerians, and it will cost less as to what the federal government is actually proposing. But again, that's on one side.
Yeah.
On a larger scale, it just again shows you the disdain and the nonchalant attitude that the Nigerian government has for education. No country will progress in 2022 without taking good care of education, good care of your primary, your secondary, and your tertiary institutions. You cannot progress because that's human development. But sadly, not only are we not even meeting UN's supposed target for budgetary allocation for education, but we've had a situation where almost every year there's an ASUU strike. While I was in school, we stayed at home for about 3 months. I remember coming back to school, after that, and I failed woefully. One of the worst sets of
of course. You've not been reading for how many months?
Yeah, I wasn't reading. I was. Don't let me tell you what I was doing.
I can only imagine what you were doing. Huh? I'll leave that to the imagination of the listener.
but on a more serious note, since February 14th, this is June 28th, and we're still in the same conversation, and there's no end in sight. We might go as far as August or September before we probably have some form of agreement. But again, apart from the payment system, you have an agreement that was signed, by both parties. We're talking the government and the teachers union. And one of the major issues the ASUU is actually asking is that government should fund education. How are you going to get quality education if you don't fund it? So for me, it also shows the unseriousness with which government takes education. It's really not a priority for them, because as many Nigerians would argue, a lot of these politicians, a lot of our supposed leaders do not have their children, in these public tertiary institutions. I heard the former Minister of State for Education, Emmanuel Onwuka, talk about how his kids are actually in government institutions here in Nigeria, and so they also feel a pinch out of it. Maybe he's just 0.001%, of our leaders right here in Nigeria who have their kids in public institutions. Some have suggested that maybe we should enact a law where none of these legislators or governors or public officials, will have their students travel out of the country. I don't think that would be the solution, because again, you would have to run foul of the constitution.
That's again their right.
Exactly, but then again, maybe if that was the case and their children are at home and the rot in the public institutions, is also getting to them, maybe we could have a bit of a change from government. You signed an agreement. Go ahead and do what is in that agreement. Problem, and that's why we're here where we are.
All right, let me speak with Abayomi Akimbola, who's right there in Abuja. You're one of our big short reporters also from Abuja there, and I'm certain you're also following the ASUU conversation. Now, this year, because we'll very soon move on to issues around political parties, just before that, the National Association of Nigerian Students said that they had enough. It also trended when they had a meeting with the Minister of Education and insisted to say, we saw pictures of your children in universities outside the country graduating. We are grounded here and you guys are just telling us what. And the man angrily got up, stormed out of the place. It actually trended that time about May this year. Now, about March rather, around March this year. Now, the students also insisted that they were going to block all roads. They did that for a bit, blocked major roads across the country and, caused a lot of traffic and everything. But, after that, everybody's just gone back to hoping and wishing for the best. So, Abayomi, tell me, in Abuja right there, which is the capital city, remember the student also said they were not going to allow political party hold their campaigns in Abuja, but the campaigns held right there in Abuja and nothing. So tell me your thought about the ASUU strike, the conversations with top guns in ASUU and with the government. Does it look like there's an end in sight, Abayomi?
Like 5 months now, and no solution in sight. For me, I guess if this will bring an end to the yearly ritual of the strike, maybe it should continue. But let's talk about the NAN's threat.
Yes.
That there won't be any form of political gathering in Abuja and, of course, major cities of Nigeria. But, of course, we all know that that was just a threat which never come to, reality.
Rabble rousing.
Looks like it. Looks like it. Go on, Abayo.
When a particular group, especially student body like that, is getting, being romanced by politicians, that's what we'll continue to see. Because for me, the leadership of NANS is different from what it used to be years back. It's just for politicians to call few of them, and the story will be different, and you will not see anything come. I don't know why NAN is still available today, and students, their members are at home for 5 months, and there's nothing they can do. They are not asking questions, because for me, they aren't asking questions. Why will a minister walk out of view?
Yeah.
And the same minister will resume to the same office the following day?
If you remember, the students kept telling him, "We pay your salaries. What do you mean?" It looks like they were irate enough, but apparently it wasn't enough.
But that was all they said. We paid your salary, and they shout that very day. And after then, they even tried to go to his personal residence, and nothing came out of it. Political gatherings in Abuja, and everything went smoothly. I can say the best ever in Abuja. You understand?
Yeah.
And politicians are not even afraid that these students might come, and do anything, because perhaps they have spoken to their leadership. So, but if this, because for me, I feel it's more than UTAS, IPs, whatever federal government ASU is saying. It's more than that.
It is.
Because,
it is.
But if it will bring final solution to the annual ritual, then let it continue.
Well, I'm highly
unfortunate.
I'm highly in doubt that this would once and for all solve the issues. Emmanuel, you covered some of the protests here in Lagos. Again, when I saw the momentum that students brought on, saying, "Oh no, finally we've had enough." In fact, on some of our shows, the parents called and said, "We are also angry enough. Maybe we're going to join the students." We didn't see any parent join any protest, by the way. But you covered some of the student protests. What did they tell you? And are you shocked that nothing is happening anymore? Everybody's just facing politics and elections now.
Okay, so I think that the ongoing growls, about the ASU strike and the way in which the federal government is handling it is what is transcending, is what we're seeing in the ongoing voters registration. Everybody sees its politics from the students' angle right now, because I'm in some of the WhatsApp groups created by these students to do advocacy, so that I can always monitor, the next action they can do, and then, alert news teams to actually go out for coverages. And the conversation has changed from they're angry about what the federal government is doing. They're angry because I think Uniben students actually carried out massive protests.
Yes, they did.
See, after that conversation from the national body that they were going to do this, they were going to do that, they actually saw that those threats, with mere threats at that point in time, were not going to go through with it. So they took it upon themselves to carry out protests, massive protests. They blocked where we have Ring Road, they blocked the Lagos Benin Expressway on their own. They didn't do this with the national body, and later they found out also that, these things are not going to, come, it's not going to bear any fruit. Looking at what happened during the NSAS protest, say how it all went down. So they were trying to protect themselves. At the same time, they were trying to find a solution. They actually went online. They tried to do a lot of trends online on Twitter to express their grounds, about the ASU strike. It trended for a while, but then it just went flat like that. Nobody was taking them serious. Everybody was talking about the political election, the campaigns, and all the rest, what this did and what that is. And that was where the conversation was. So on the platforms, I saw that a student leader just came on the platform. I was like, you know what? Enough with these issues. What we're going to do from now on is to go register for our PVC and let us show them our power by our vote. So that is where the conversation has gone to now. Nobody is talking about the ASU strike. They don't want to even hear anything about them. Yeah. They just another one suggested, get a skill. Everybody get a skill, then go register for your PVC. And that is what they're actually promoting right now on these platforms. Nobody's talking about strike. Nobody's talking about going back to school. If they want to do it, they do it. That is all their mindset right now. And I think that is why we've seen a lot of voter registration. A lot of people are going out there to get their PVCs because they want to show themselves. They want to show their power next year, 2023 election. I don't know how that is going to turn out, but you see, that is where the conversation is currently.
Well, let me speak with Ifiemi and give us a vibe of what's going on down south there. So again, the general outlook is like, okay, looks like this government is not going to fix anything, so let's just wait for elections. Is that the same thing we hear down south there, or are students still agitating? Are parents asking more questions, or is everybody just hoping and waiting for this government to leave and maybe the next administration would take education more seriously?
I wish I could have said differently, but the situation here is just exactly as Emmanuel has stated.
Wow.
At some point, they had, the vigor and wanted to organize protests. NANS here in Rivers State being one of the bodies that did what it could do. And then we also had the National Union of Rivers State Students, NOS, that also wanted to do a protest. But then, you have, don't forget that we have state universities that are operating fully as well.
Absolutely.
So
and private universities.
And private universities. Now there's a problem. The federal ones aren't working. Those for the states are working. So now you have the unions now, in split. The ones from the states can't be a part of your protest, right? Because, we're doing what we're doing, so we can't protest against the state government. I think at the time in Rivers State, we even had the commissioner of police holding a meeting with NAN's leadership and telling them, see, this is why you should not be having this protest now. Conversations are on, this will be sorted out and all of that. Sadly, here we are. Nothing has been done. It's really painful. Like Emmanuel has said, for most of the students here, similar situation, get a skill, get your PVC. That's what it's mostly about now. It's a situation where students now feel if we want to change this, we have to do it at the polls. Protesting now would not change anything. ASU has even said, the major problem is the infrastructure in schools. Aside the salaries and all of that, I schooled the University of Port Harcourt. We did not have enough classrooms. We will sit on the block in stadiums. That's where you have lectures with one small system, and then you see another department sitting just by you with their own system. And I did a borrowed course, computer course, and we had one laptop for over almost 1,000 students, one laptop in front. So it's that bad. So you would understand where ASU is coming from. Parents on their part used to always say ASU have been the problem. I think this is one time where you're beginning to see a shift. Students, parents now saying the government should do what they need to do. So it's where we found ourselves with 26%. What UNESCO says should be budget for education. Look at what we have.
7.9. 7.9. That's what we're doing.
Okay, so you see, which is really poor. That is where we are. It's where we are, and it's really sad. So for students now, it's get your PVC, get a skill, and then 2023 we go there and protest the best way we can, which is by voting.
But on a light note, I've heard a lot of people say, well, if I'll start university and then you would finally have to advise me to take up a skill, go learn fashion designing, go learn how to make shoes, go learn how to make hair, go learn makeup, go learn. So why am I going to school? Why? Why should I? Are we not going to have more and more young people who are not interested in going to school?
Okay. I think another problem we have with our educational sector is the fact that the curriculum isn't structured in a way that it fits the economy.
Right.
And now that's the problem. Like what we're learning in school, I don't know the last time you saw the X. I would have said, what did you study and what are you doing now? Same thing. When was the last time you saw the X or the Y? Not to say those things aren't relevant, but I think the system we have doesn't feed our economy. And that's why young people are gradually losing the urge to go to school. Because, I mean, somebody said something on Twitter I saw, which I found really funny. So you go to school and become educated for 5 years and come out, and somebody who did not go to school, who's not a graduate, employs you to, work under them. That's where we're heading to. So it's now a system where we have talent and skill as the major focus. We need to also look at our curriculum and begin to restructure like we have in China and other Asian countries and in the Western world as well. Perhaps that will help young people, pick up the interest again to want to go to school.
Thank you.
Just to
get a job when you come out, another problem.
Right. Getting a job when you graduate. Ufuoma, you were going to say something.
Yeah, just to add to the conversation,
Yeah.
I think there's another area we possibly have not been looking at. I might be in the minority in this instance, but it has to be said, education is not cheap. We have to realize that fact that good education, I should say, is not cheap. Yes, you can have public institutions that cater to the general public, but let's also realize that if you want to get great education, you have to pay for it. That's why some Nigerians are going just close by here, Ghana, and they're sending their words to a neighboring country, and we're actually empowering the economy of Ghana. That's why a lot of Nigerians, want to go to school, want to go to the UK, want to go to Ukraine, want to go to as many of these countries, because to a large extent, they've seen that their education there is quality, and the quality did not materialize overnight. So yes, you want to also argue that government should not arbitrarily be increasing school fees, or state government or owners of these institutions should not arbitrarily be increasing school fees. However, we also need to realize that if you want the great education you are thinking about, then it has to be properly paid for. How much? Well, that's something I do not know for now, but I think it's something we need to also have at the back of our minds, even as we discuss the whole ASU and federal government issue.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. I wanted to make an addition.
Yeah, Famidi, go on.
Oh, okay. So one of the things I also noticed that is on the rise in Nigeria, of course, is private institutions. The number and the ease in which they get some of these
licenses, right?
Yeah. You'll be surprised that you may not even know the names properly, but you run into them into a JAMB brochure. I don't even know if JAMB still produces a brochure.
Oh, I was going to ask you, do they still have that? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. But isn't it interesting that some of the lecturers that we have in the public institutions that we're saying, they're not providing good, or the educational standard that comes from them is a little bit ancient. Remember, these men and women have to teach across a 40-year period or thereabout. I mean, besides the retirement age being 65, but if they do start active service, well, they'll be teaching you possibly the same set of things, at least a majority part of it, for about 40 years, 30 years, 25 years or thereabout of the same thing. But guess what? These are the same men that sometimes transition into the private institutions to also teach, who are compensated to at the level of delivery that they provide. It could be the same curriculum, it could be different, but it tells you a lot about that. And while government in itself may say, well, ASU is the marketing public institutions, and the government is saying we're still looking for money to also to pay you, its salary is about who is the cashier, who is the collector. We've automatically demarketed our public institutions, not just for good and quality education, it's also for stability, it's also for a sense of what do we do with ourselves. If you're not going to the schools outside the country, you're possibly saving up your life savings to cater for your child to be able to go to a private institution that you're sure when he would come out, and if you borrowed money, you're hoping that he gets a good job to be able to start pay up his plan. And a lot of private students actually inclined towards this. They're doing the numbers, getting up good GPAs. because they know that if they get out there and peradventure they get a good job, they can possibly start to pay the money that they borrowed from uncle, auntie, anybody around, or the godfathers that may have been declined. Thinking about that, it means that we have moved into a system where people borrow money to go to school, similar to what happens in the United States.
US,
it's automatically, informally, I must say, building up in Nigeria as well. So you see, a lot of the channels that may not be easily recognized are starting to build there. And people are saying, well, let's just save up to money to go to Cotonou. What's the worst that can happen? They will teach us in Selepa, and sorry about that. At the end of the day, I'm out. I mean, I have friends who studied law from a school in Cotonou. I don't know the name now, but they are practicing in Nigeria. They're able to get African jobs. They're able to get foreign jobs, and they're called to bar in Nigeria. And before you know it, if you're studying law for 6, 7, 8 years in Nigeria, I'm not sure you remember even the first law you ever
learned in the first year.
Or even unload the case, peradventure, everything, every element. Thinking about the strike now, I do not think any school that was on the verge of, and I suffered for this when I was in school, when we go on strike and they say we're on the verge of starting exam and we go on strike, the first 3 exams.
You're still trying to understand what you're doing.
Lodo, you failed.
Ufuoma was our classmate. He used to collect money for us.
It was your class rep. I can only imagine.
I had no clue as regards what am I doing. What did I say I was studying again? Before you catch yourself up again, you already know you have CO to attend. Hopefully there's no carryover. There's no strike between your 2 carryovers. That is the reality of Nigerian education.
Highly unfortunate. I love where you draw the parallel between where we're heading in Nigeria and what's happening in the US. By the way, we already have organizations in Nigeria creating payment platforms for education. So they tell you we can give you credit to pay the fees and we're going to spread it out. It's already springing up in Nigeria. Even for primary school education, they're already offering that service. Oh, you can't pay, don't worry. We'll pay for you. Then you pay us back with some interest. So we're gradually getting there. Now, for those of you who are listening, again, welcome to the show. Thank you for being there. It's the Roundtable. This is Nigeria Info 99.3. And this Roundtable this time is going across Nigeria. You're listening to my colleagues from Abuja, from Port Harcourt. And you can join us live on all our social media platforms, on Facebook and YouTube, both for Nigeria Info Lagos, Nigeria Info Abuja, and Nigeria Info Port Harcourt. If you want to join the conversation, I am not going to open the phone line. Some of you are waiting there because of my time. There's a lot to talk about. So go leave me your thoughts on WhatsApp if you wish. It's 08095975805. You can also leave me your comments on the Facebook or the YouTube live stream. That's Nigeria Info 99.3 or Nigeria Info FM for Abuja and Port Harcourt. Remember, use the WhatsApp number. It's 08095975805. 5805. I'd like to hear from students. Have you given up on schooling? Parents, are you still wishing you're going to pay school fees? What's going to happen with the ASU strike? Now, talking education, let's drive straight off to Nigerians studying in Ukraine. For once, a foreign story makes it to our roundtable. The war in Russia and Ukraine is very, very much our concern in Nigeria. Now, we've got quite a number of students who got trapped in Ukraine. I don't know. I don't think it's possible, but just in case you missed the Russia-Ukraine story, I'm going to give you a bit of the background. Now, they've always had this thing going on for years. Russia, Ukraine, the eastern area, the Donbas region, Russia trying to take over these areas, trying to control these territories, and Ukraine saying, no, we're a sovereign nation. And the issue of NATO also coming in, Ukraine attempting to join NATO, and Russia saying, no, we're the big dog watching over the Eastern Bloc, and no, Ukraine has no business in NATO. And NATO saying, okay, yeah, we didn't say we'd sign them, but we didn't say we would not sign them in. So that's the biggest issue around there. Now, Russia officially recognized two self-proclaimed separatist states in the Donbas region on the 21st of February this year, and they openly sent troops into those territories. 3 days later, Russia began to invade Ukraine. Now, there were feelers before then that Russia might invade Ukraine. But everyone, was saying, would it happen? Would Russia want to do it in 2022? Do you try to take over territories? Now, much of the international community began to condemn Russia for that action, accusing it of breaking international law, violating Ukraine's sovereignty, and so on. Now, sanctions came in right after, economic sanctions against Russia, against big individuals from Russia, against Russian companies, everything that comes in from Russia. Now, this invasion began on the 24th of February this year. Nigerian students, we have quite a number of them. Again, because of some of the reasons we pointed out earlier, there's always strike in Nigeria. You're not certain that when you're done, you get a job. So everybody is trying to get out and go study abroad. So a lot of them are in Russia. A lot of them are in Ukraine. So our students got stuck there, as well as other Nigerians living in Ukraine. The Nigerian government, first of all, told us that, hey, we guessed Russia might invade Ukraine, but we weren't sure. So there was no plan. There wasn't an immediate plan, right, to get them out either before the invasion or after the invasion. So we started thinking about what to do and how to get them out. The federal government summoned the ambassadors of Russia and Ukraine to Nigeria, Alexia Shambashin and Kedora Valeri. They came to talk about how we could evacuate Nigerians out of Russia, out of Ukraine. And also the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, met with both of them, and it says the government would not condole the violation of the integrity of Ukraine and all the works. Now, there were conversations. So how do we get Nigerians out of Russia, out of Ukraine when the invasion had begun? That was the thing. Well, you can't send in a private plane. You can't do a civilian plane. So how do we get them out? So we remembered EPIS. And EPIS, as always, almost come to the rescue for Nigeria. So, okay, would EPIS go on there? Well, would they be able to get them out? The conversation went around. We finally had Nigerians travel, and I must say that possibly the Nigerian government tried it. In this regard, it wasn't quick enough, but it was quite something. Reaching out to Nigerians there, getting their data, moving them from Bucharest, moving them to Romania, moving them to other neighboring countries from where they could be evacuated. Now, let's talk about this Russian invasion. I'm going to start this time around with Femidi. Now, Nigerians there, the first thing for me was that Nigeria was shocked that Russia would invade Ukraine. Almost everybody saw it coming. Putin was quite clear about where he was going, but we for some magical reason did not see that it was going to happen. So when the student got trapped there, and the racism that's happened afterwards, Nigerian students being left behind in the cold, black people being left behind in the cold, white people accepting white people in for shelter, leaving the blacks out there in the cold. So when we say our education is not good, is it still worth living when you're not sure what will happen to you? Femi D, let's talk about the process of that invasion, students getting trapped, and Nigeria being able to get them back.
It's interesting. One thing that has happened after World War II is the fact that a lot of people have called on to say, I can, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Yeah. So it was supposed to be a standard bluff. That moment where you think that this person is not going to do what he is. But after all,
you think that Putin, you really did think that Putin would be calling a bluff, like Vladimir Putin would be calling a bluff? I don't think so. I don't think
the rest of the world, we really thought he was keen on the bluff. Come on.
Okay, Abayomi does not agree with you. Abayomi is shaking his leg.
I'm not saying I agree with myself now. I know better now.
Okay, even you do not agree with yourself.
I don't agree with myself now. I said that was what I was thinking. It's a standard bluff game that we thought we were dealing with, but apparently the man is a little bit more than I've been dealt with. And one thing I must say, I've had the chance to read about him. The Last Tsars is described in one book. His mind there's a lot going through his mind. He's not your regular guy. He's a guy who has survived death many times. So death is really second nature to him. So with everything being said about Russia, Ukraine, I also think the Ukrainians underestimated the power of what he could and was keen on achieving. Putin is not the guy that suddenly the US will do a paperwork on and tell you he's capable of this in terms of the weapons they have and the likes of that, and we will not want to test his width and strength if he's allowed to. But, I think one of the things people failed to do was to intervene in time with Russia and Ukraine. The key reason why I say so is this. Normally, when you want to have war, since after World War II, one of the things people used to do is in conflict resolution, you calculate out who has the upper game in terms of the effects. People were looking at, they're going to sanction Russia, but Russia was looking at how we would sanction the world
in return,
how we would sanction the world with oil,
with
how
gas.
we would sanction everything you're thinking about. They calculated all that out, but I think the biggest of the macroeconomic guys didn't see that coming, that this would play out a little bit differently. And I think we're paying for it right now. Even if the war, or supposedly it says we tell each other sorry now, it's still going to take 3 months, 6 months to have that adjustment. Remember, we just came out from COVID-19 when all this drama of how can you build the fifth mainland, that's Lagos. How can you build a bridge with NATO over my head,
Yeah.
So it's something people did not give into so much. I know Abayomi disagrees with me. Maybe
let me hear Abayomi. Abayomi, I think myself and you were on the same boat. I saw it coming. I mean, it's Putin we're talking about, gentlemen. Putin.
Well, the Putin that I know and that I read about, you can tell that he's ready.
Right.
And the truth is, why is this happening now? It's a political game between Russia and US. It's quite unfortunate that Ukraine is just put, is just in the center.
Yeah.
It's a political game between. It doesn't happen during the time of the former US president, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
And we all know Trump. Yeah, we all know Trump is Putin ally. It wouldn't have. So it's more than what we are just seeing from when the threat was coming up. I even said it in the newsroom here. I said the Nigerian government would not take action now. Why is it that the US, I know of the US, I know of the Canada, I know of Australia, they evacuated their envoys and family before their attack. They knew it. And then US president was there, speaking grammar. If you try, you get this from us, we will attack. Have they?
But he got his people out while he was threatening. He told his people to leave.
Because he knew Putin will.
Yeah.
So it's more than just what we are seeing from just this thing. It's a political game between
expensive game.
The two countries.
Well,
now,
it is.
The Nigerian government, as none of them, they always like damage control. They will spend more in controlling damage. What they should have done before. Nigeria has at 2020 has about 4,000 students in Ukraine. Of course, the highest in Africa, followed by Egypt or so. Now, when the attack finally happened, they tried, but they should have, done this even before the attack.
But the Nigerian government
exactly
claimed that not everybody they knew was properly documented in Ukraine.
No, I disagree with that. I disagree.
That would not be true.
Femi, please, let's not.
The Nigerian student body. The Nigerian student body. I mean, the Nigerian student in Ukraine, they have body. It's very simple. Just contact the body.
In fact, I think the body. If going body is even too far, I mean, every Nigerian who would live here to go to Ukraine has a visa, right? And you had an education visa.
Some Nigerians also didn't want to leave Ukraine.
Oh, no, that one is a different thing. Oh, that's absolutely.
So Femi is probably trying to play the devil's advocate here, and
that guy, I don't know the
that's awesome. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno, by the way, in case you were wondering. So we can praise the government on one breath and also criticize them in another. Both things can be right. Some of the actions they took after the war started, some of the actions they did to ensure that Nigerians were evacuated. You have to give them kudos.
It's commendable.
For some of,
absolutely.
For some of those actions, but you also have to ask again, like Abayomi asked. Some of these things could have been done before the war started in the first place.
Exactly.
When we
enough
talk about the fact that at a point, some of the statements from some of our officials were quite outrageous. Some were suggesting that they were not sure that this was going to happen. They didn't know it would get to this. But come on, like,
are you kidding?
Okay, for want of a better word, the kind of things I would have said in my newsroom, I will not say it here. But you get the point. But at least Emmanuel can understand the kind of things I would say in the newsroom when some of these issues pop up. But it also goes back to my earlier point from the get-go. We don't know how to plan for things. We wait for things to happen, and then we start running helter-skelter. But looking at it also from another angle, the war might not be fought very close to us here. It's 1,000 kilometers away from us, but we are feeling the pinch.
Yeah, we are.
Economically, Nigeria is at a crossroad, and to a large extent, some of these are as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. Go to the market right now, the prices of things have skyrocketed. We import about 50% of our wheat from Russia. It means that your bread has gone from 900 naira to maybe or maybe 700 naira before to over 1,000 naira.
1,200.
It means exactly. We unfortunately have crude oil, but we have to import the products from petrol to kerosene to diesel, and companies are suffering. The prices of diesel has skyrocketed, to the point where it's tripled the normal price it used to be. That has an overall effect on the cost of doing businesses. Some businesses are finding it difficult to pay salaries. Some have even resulted to laying off staff. And of course, this is also impacting the price of goods, in the market.
Yeah.
So your meat has increased. Your transport fare has increased.
Gas.
Your tomato has increased. Gas has also increased, and because the war hasn't ended and we don't have an idea when it's going to end, it just means that for the common man, apart from the students who are evacuated and the effect he has on education, the common man on the streets of Lagos, on the streets of Abuja, on the streets of Port Harcourt, on the streets of everywhere in Nigeria is also feeling a pinch of this situation out there in Ukraine and Russia. Because again, to a large extent, we failed to plan.
Yeah.
Why is it that in 2022, we are still importing petrol? We're still spending a lot of the foreign exchange we get on importing refined products that we have here. Some persons are now waiting for the Dangote refinery, which is supposed to kickstart this year. And here's me asking, is Dangote going to sell it to you at a cheaper price? Will he sell it to you at a cheaper price? And why? Another big question, why is it that Dangote refinery is going to be up and running in a matter of months, but we have 4 refineries that have had turnaround maintenances for God knows how long? Millions of dollars have been sunk into it. Why is it that the Port Harcourt refinery, the refinery in Kaduna, and other refineries are not working? But somebody somewhere, we saw all the government officials, from the president to ministers, to everybody that's everybody. We saw them earlier this year, at the opening of the Dangote refinery. They're all smiling, and I'm asking myself, so what happened to your own refineries that you sunk millions of dollars? I guess that's the question that the government really needs to answer for.
And I truly hope that somebody here of the gentlemen will have an answer to that big question that Ufuoma has asked. The Dangote refinery would work in a matter of, let's even give it a few months, but Nigerian refinery is just unable to get it together. But now that we've talked about how expensive things have gotten, ladies and gentlemen, Nigerians across the world, let's talk about the prices of items and inflation. My goodness, I filled gas just last week. and I felt like someone had put a gun to my head. I felt totally robbed. I mean, now in Lagos, you can fill gas for about 1,000 naira per kg, 12.5 kg, 10,000 naira, 11,000, depending on where you are filling yours from. 1,000 naira per kg, guys, and bread, 1,200 naira on the street. Are you going to talk about rice, vegetable oil, even meat? Everything is expensive. Inflation this year has skyrocketed. There's a very popular, I wish I could play it. It would just have been so suitable. There's this very popular sound you hear on TikTok and Reels where they say 10,000 naira is not behaving like 10 naira. Nobody's talking about it. Because if you're holding 10,000 naira in your hands right now, you are just joking. You're just joking. So I'm going to take the round. So please, I'm starting off with Ifiemi in Port Harcourt. Is it better? I think it's cheaper in Port Harcourt. I could just come over to buy things right away.
Which Port Harcourt? Is it the same Port Harcourt that I'm in right now?
Please, somebody tell her. I know Ufuoma understands what's happening in Port Harcourt.
Tell me.
My pocket don't empty.
He knows what's happening in Port Harcourt.
I just came Saturday morning, and trust me, you don't want to know the amount of money we've spent on gas, on buying water, on buying bread, on buying.
Exactly.
Well, my kids don't even care. All they just want to hear is that
they want to eat.
That they want to eat.
Ifemi, I need you to give me a feeler because you speak to your audience every day. And for those, I mean, if you're still single, and one of the downturns of this inflation is I think that fewer people will get married. People will not want to marry again. Because now I saw on Twitter somebody calculating the cost of diaper and baby milk and food, and these children just want to eat. They were created to consume, and they just want to eat. So if
they have to focus on what they're made for.
Give me a feeler of what Port Harcourt is like.
Well, I think like every other part of the country, man, it is not smiling in Port Harcourt. People are not smiling. The situation is really, really bad. Like we said, the very important thing, bread. There's a very popular bread in Port Harcourt. I don't want to mention the name.
No, let's not do adverts.
But when we began to notice that the taste of the bread was now, the quality was reducing. So people started asking questions like, what is happening? And it's all because of the price. Just yesterday, a correspondent, we spoke with the Bakers Association, Rivers State Chapter chairman, and he was saying this is what it's going to be. They're supposed to even go on a strike sometime next month to protest the situation and the fact that government isn't doing anything about it. So it's not just for bread, pastries generally, cakes, and name it, now very expensive. The price of rice, of gari, of a plate of food mama puts normally, like you would normally go out with 200 naira and get, it doesn't work. 200 naira now could just be like 2 meats.
Doesn't work.
You haven't thought about buying, so it's really a problem. And I think in the midst of all of this, it only is revealing the fact that government has really not done its job. For instance, here in River State, we have cassava in abundance. You would look at the fact that, this is River State, Niger Delta, there's fish. So fish should not really be expensive, my dear. Don't let anybody deceive you. Don't let anybody deceive you. It is very expensive here. This is just, the river is just there. Bananas, no, don't play.
Wow.
You can't buy.
Let me talk to Femi D. Give us a feel of Abuja. There's plenty money in Abuja. That's what every Nigerian thinks. Like, Abuja is where the money is. A bit. So I mean, it should be easier there. Maybe we should all pack our things and just come to Abuja. Yeah.
Well, according to so I don't know what we still spend naira in Nigeria. But there are some parts of Abuja where it is Nadol. Nadol is supposed to be a crossbreed of Naira and Dollar.
Wow.
Something like that. Depending on the situation. There are hotels in Abuja we actually pay. Yeah.
Send me flight ticket.
There are hotels in Abuja where you actually pay dollars. So, Fama, you're saying something.
He wants to come to Abuja.
Flight ticket, let me come to Abuja. Biko.
I get your back, I beg. I get your back.
Read my lips. It's a no.
It's a no.
So, but the reality on ground in Abuja, I do not even know where to start from. It's a city with big men who don't really understand how to had just their plans to the very moderate life, but it is something else when it comes to anything you're buying. People are making attempts to plant lemongrass to make up for tea.
Wow.
People can't send their children to schools with all kinds of things that they used to before. Now, children are learning fasting in Abuja. Depends on if your child.
Oh my goodness!
You just have to tell them. You have to explain to them, that it is acceptable not to eat every time. So the children are not born to consume. They are tamed to consume here, by all good reasons now. But in terms of the reality on ground, trust me, you cannot touch corn, roasted corn, anyhow here in Abuja.
Oh, same here in Lagos.
You have to be sure of the price before you touch.
Same here in Lagos. Same here in Lagos.
Same in Port Harcourt. You guys in Port Harcourt, at least you can talk of river and fish. We can't talk of fish or river. Everything is literally imported in left, right, and center into Abuja. Yeah. And everybody believes people in Abuja have money. And
I think we have the same problem, especially with cattle and goats. The price now is quite expensive because they have to move those things from the north to this area now. So the prices really are, I don't know what to say, skyrocketing would be like understatement.
It's something, a fair
I think the one that really gets to me most is that the price of plantain in Lagos is killing.
Oh, you guys still buy plantain?
How would I go to a restaurant and buy plantain and then you give me 3 for 200 naira? Is this place?
Our biggest problem in Abuja right now is, there's a saying in Yoruba, I will interpret it, which means you put animals alongside with humans. But unfortunately, what that means is not to degrade anything, but essentially just to emphasize that sometimes we have to reduce our living in order for you to stay in a town where everybody believes you are rich. When people in Lagos are calling you to send money, and you yourself, you are very well programmed. You don't go to some places in Abuja. In Lagos, one thing interesting is, so you have VR, you have Lekki, people move there to go and work and come back. We have the same problem in Abuja now, except the fact that where we are moving to is in the center, that's city center. People stay in Suleja to work in Abuja. People stay in Zuba. People stay in Nasarawa State to work in Abuja.
Wow.
Do you understand? And it's just one road work. People are starting to Lagos, yes, people stay in Lagos. People are too much. You are coming to Abuja and you are fighting us.
A big fair.
How do I explain this?
A big fear I have is that in the next couple of years, we're sincerely playing with the trouble because we're going to have malnourished children. Parents are forced to cut down the number of milk, eggs, meat, fish that children consume. And we know how important this is to have a well-grown mind and brain, a well-developed mind. So we're possibly going to be raising...
Now that is that will grow our brain. When you and I did not grow up on eggs and meat, so there are things that grow the brain.
Like what? Oh my goodness. So now people have they're thinking of alternatives to meat and fish. I don't know what that ever could be, but that's what. Let me read some messages that have come in, and then we'll take the very final lap on the show. I hope you're enjoying the first edition of our, I wanted to say global roundtable. It's a national roundtable. It's going on across all our Nigeria info platforms across Nigeria. Inflation this year, as recorded by the National Bureau of Statistics, jumped to about 17.71% in May. That's crazy. If you're talking crazy, that's crazy. Over 17%. Now, I'm going to read off some comments that we've had come in on our social media feeds. We've got some from WhatsApp. We've got some also coming in on our social media platforms. Oh no. Okay, let me start off from here and see how much comment we have in here. We've got a comment here. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Lei Jen from Maraba says, please, did you know that not only ASU is on strike, even COSU is on strike? But it's so unfortunate that we're not talking about the COSU strike. Says, we're pleading. We want to go back to school, please. Another one from Mr. IK from Abuja says, the constant ASU strike in the country is a direct reflection of the government nauseating ideology against Western education. Clearly, over time, it is an element of governance, hegemony in the country, and this always has committed negligence to education totally. All right, we've got some more, and I'll be coming back to read them as soon as I resuscitate my reading platform. Give me a moment on that. All right, let's jump on to our final lap the biggest. The political season is upon us. It's been here since January. Nigerian Info is set to cover everything coverable, and we are absolutely doing that. Let's talk about the political party primaries and the build up to the elections next year. It's getting really hot. It's getting really exciting. The game for 2023 is totally interesting. Like we mentioned at the beginning of the show when we're talking about the ASU strike, remember that NANS had threatened that political primaries will not by any means hold in Abuja. Well, they did hold, but the build up to the primaries were very, very interesting. You had big players in the big political parties, and three parties appear to be pushing the biggest games for next year's election. You've got the APC that wants to retain power. You've got the PDP that was kicked out about 8 years ago that wants to return and show that they can also fix it. And then you have a big third force that's building up massive momentum across the country. Also conversations around giving the presidency to the southeast for the first time in Nigeria. Now the APC was clear about where was going to be an open contest for all. The PDP started by saying, would we have are we going to zone to a particular region? Are we going to leave it open? And everyone was looking up to the PDP to zone to the southeast. For the APC, remember the governors came and said, it will go to the south. They just said the south. So we weren't sure south where, southwest, southeast, or south-south. At the end of the day, Tinubu got a massive vote to be the flag bearer for the APC in next year's election. 7 aspirants stepped down for the former governor of Lagos State, and they pledged their support for him. Ufuoma, everyone practically didn't sleep the night of the APC presidential primary because it was a very, very funny night. Everyone would come up to give their speech, and all they were saying is, I'm stepping down for Baba. I'm giving all my support. I want all my supporters also supporting. You have the big guns like Kayode Fayemi stepping down. In fact, to a point, everyone was thinking, will Vice President Yemi Osinbajo also step down? Because everybody has stepped down, finished now. What's remaining? Just hand it over to him. Ken Namani withdrew from the race. Others continued, but a lot of them stepped down just before the game. Jigawa State Governor Abubakar Badaru stepped down. Dimeji Bankole stepped down. Ajayi Borofi stepped down. Kayode Fayemi stepped down. Godswill Akpabio stepped down. Ibukule Amosu, former governor of Ogun State, stepped down. Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, the only female aspirant in the race, stepped down. The youngest male presidential aspirant, Nicholas Felix, also stepped down, but he stepped down for Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Again, before the race, Ken Namani had pulled out because he just said he wasn't a party to it. For the PDP, Atiku Abubakar won also, emerged as the party's flag bearer. He defeated his closest rival. Theirs was also a very interesting game, build up to the political primary. Nyesom Wike had given a lot of drama before then, and he was someone to watch out for in that game. He came second. Former Senate President Bukola Saraki came third. Ufuoma, I would like to talk about the APC presidential primaries. You did not sleep. I slept and woke up and you were still chatting in the group, so I know you did not sleep. So it was a very interesting night of withdrawals. Tell me what your expectations were for that primary. Were you disappointed, or did it go out the way you had anticipated?
To be very honest, I think I slept for about 2 or 3 hours. I left members of our digital team, Hilary, Noroka, Olamide, and Ken. I left them. They were the ones who were actually up, almost all night. I slept for about 2 or 3 hours and then woke up at about 4:30 or thereabout. Did it go to my expectations? I would say yes, to a large extent. I had, written a piece on Nigerian Info's website as far back as February, and I stated clearly there that if the APC primaries were actually thrown open, there was only going to be one winner, and that winner is the person who eventually became the APC candidate, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Love him or hate him, he is one of the greatest politicians we've got in the country. He did not start preparing to become president just yesterday or just a few months ago. This is a plan, that has been ongoing for about 15 years or thereabout. You could argue maybe since he left office as governor in 2007, he made those plans. He started by ensuring that he got the Southwest into his kitty, ensuring that, after the 2003 elections where PDP swept all Southwest states except Lagos, he ensured that by 2007 he had gotten about 2 back into the AC or AD as it was known then moved to AC.
Yes.
And then, of course, he not only did that, he started building his blocks across the federation, helping in installing a couple of legislators here and there, and to a large extent also helping in dethroning a party who had suggested that they were going to rule for 60 years. Remember, the PDP kept boasting about that before 2015. So himself got together with the president we have right now, President Buhari, and a few others, splinter group from ANPP, and they formed the APC. And to a large extent, they did what a lot of persons did not think they were going to do, which was overthrow the ruling party. And to a large extent, you want to think that he had built that momentum, knowing that, after 8 years of President Buhari, he would most likely be in line. For some of the other contestants, the vice president himself, and of course the man who eventually came second, former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, you would think that in an open field, it would be difficult to match the potentials of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But some of them are actually counting on the president. There were lots of conversations about the president anointing a particular candidate, or the president, giving consensus. Remember, there was also the conversation about the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. Time will not, allow us to talk about that. But what a lot of the other contestants were actually waiting for was possibly anointing from the president. Sadly for them, it never came. Right. There were also conversations about the Senate president. In fact, I was actually shocked that the Senate president got into the mix, because you would think that he was supposed to be someone in the camp of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But here's what I think happened. The APC or some persons realized that PDP were going to give their ticket, or Atiku, let me not say give their ticket, that Atiku was going to win the PDP ticket. And so they were considering and asking themselves, would a Southerner be able to beat a Northerner when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of the elections? And so some persons started flying the kite of the Senate president. Some had suggested that the president's anointed candidate was the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. But I think that, towards when the primaries were getting close, there was that consideration of, do we get a northern candidate to be able to nullify the threat of an Atiku, who most likely would have gotten the PDP ticket? And I think that's where Ahmed Lawal came into the picture. And if you notice, if you heard the statements, the speech by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it seemed like he was really angry, with Lawal, because a lot of us felt Lawal was supposed to be in his camp. Well, they waited for the president's anointing. It never came. And the man who you could argue had prepared well ahead, years ahead, ended up getting the primary ticket. Question now would be, does he have enough in his kitty to be able to win a general election? Well, we've got 7 more months, to think about that. But Wemimo, just to wrap up on this, the one thing I do not find funny with the way the primaries, have brought up some of the major candidates right now, is that the election in 2023 looks like it's going to be a whole lot like what happened in the 60s, what happened in the 70s, and to a large extent in the 1983 election. We're going back to almost a regional setting. You have the candidate of the PDP, an Hausa Fulani person in terms of the former vice president, Atiku Abubakar. You have the candidate of the APC from the Southwest, Yoruba-speaking axis of the country. And then you have the candidate of the Labour Party in Peter Obi, who, as much as we want to argue, and maybe rightly so, that his momentum is powered by a lot of disenchanted Nigerians and disenfranchised youth, you would not also remove the fact that he is also from the southeast, the Igbo-speaking part of the country. Okay. So to a large extent, we're having some form of regional politics, Igbo versus Hausa, Fulani versus Yoruba, and I think to a large extent that is not healthy for Nigeria.
Well, Nigerians would have to test how that would run. But I'd like to speak about the political primary of the PDP. I'm coming to you, Ifiemi, on this one. Before the primaries, there was quite some clamor to say, there's never been a president from southeastern part of Nigeria. Let an Igbo person become the president. The outlook for the PDP was to say, if you're going to overthrow the APC, you have a better chance if you put up an Igbo candidate. At the end of the day, the PDP refused to zone its primaries and threw it open, to which Atiku Abubakar won. Now, Peter Obi, before the primary, withdrew from the party and crossed over to the Labour Party. We're going to talk about the third force in a bit, but let's talk about that intrigue that happened in the PDP. One would assume that trying to get power again, that there's a sentiment towards having an Igbo presidency. Apparently, the PDP does not think so.
All right, clearly, I wouldn't say the PDP itself didn't think so. It's a party, although the party would be made up of individuals. But I think it's about the politics and how it was played. The party itself was smart enough not to take any sides, and that was the reason why it left it open. So now all of you who are aspirants, you slug it out, play the politics, and if you find some way to get delegates to, vote in your favor, so be it. It turns out Atiku got that vote, and now is the candidate. But when you look at it critically, many would say the Southeast have not been well represented, at least at the position of presidency, and they need to occupy that position. And Peter Obi would have been one person who, being a running mate to Atiku Abubakar in the last election in which the PDP, lost, you would expect that he would, come up to be the person to lead this time. Eventually, that did not work. And for many reasons that were cited, many reasons. Some people mentioned dollar. Whether that was the case, if he wasn't willing to spend dollar,
right.
Some people say. I was listening to a former governor, I think it was in Niger State. Yes, he was on television, and he was also saying the reason why some people left the PDP, the selfish interest of other individuals. Don't forget that the governor of Rivers State was also someone who many thought would have been able to, pick up that ticket, and he did not. Some people are saying that, mind you, this isn't verified yet. It's just rumors going around that perhaps the governor of Rivers State was responsible for why Peter Obi left the PDP, maybe because he felt like, the ambitions of the governor. That's what the former governor of Niger State would have said at the time too. So it's many ways. Many said the kind of person that Peter Obi is would not have made it easy for him to emerge as the candidate, looking at the financial implication of Nigerian politics. But that's on one side. Many other things that could have followed. I think the APC also had a chance to put up a candidate from the Southeast, but it did not. Instead, we got what we got. And the thought that many felt the president did not have an anointed candidate, I don't think that's also true. I feel that the president, I think he did, and I think it was the Minister of Transportation, if you ask for my opinion. I think he did.
He refused to announce that. In fact, everyone was, I think...
This is it. Let me put this to you. Let's look at it this way. This was a president who asked categorically, he stated that he needed to be given a chance to make an input as to who takes over from him. Did he or did he not say that?
But he never announced anybody.
He didn't state a name. He held meeting with all the governors and the aspirants and was saying he needed to make an input. Remember, Yahaya Bello was on television saying that they held a meeting. Everybody agreed that they were going to step aside for the president's candidate. He also did not mention a name, but he said those words. And then eventually we saw what Tinubu Jagaban said when he went to Ondo State. I felt the comments he made when he was Ondo State to speak with the delegates was largely responsible for how things turned out. When he said, I helped him, I did what I did, I told him come back and run, and I told him you agree that you will not play, you will not joke with the Yoruba people. And that was why I think he had the confidence to even say it's my turn. Give me now. So perhaps there might have been some agreements. Perhaps there have been some agreements that they had, And now it was looking like the president needed, was towing a different path.
Okay.
And he wasn't comfortable.
Because of our time, let's go to Abuja. Abayomi, you are a political guy. So tell us, did you get a feeler from the president?
He was a delegated journalist.
Yes,
delegated journalist.
So Abayomi, tell us again. Well, did you say that the president
had? Let me agree with what he just said about the president having
a preferred candidate.
A preferred candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcry of Tinubu in Abeokuta when he went to meet delegates was the total game changer. I remember when they went for screening, of course, 23 of them were screened by the John Odigoyegun's led committee.
Mm-hmm.
They all agreed for a consensus, apart from Tinubu. Tinubu said, I will agree for a consensus if it favors me. But if it does not favor me, we are going for primary. He was clear about it. And I guess that this was because maybe he was thinking that if they should go for consensus, he might not be the preferred candidate. And for me, I'm still having problem with the types of primaries we have. Direct, indirect, and of course consensus.
Yeah.
Either you like it or not, consensus is imposition.
Right.
And the indirect primary is highest bidder. We should not deceive ourselves. Because the question now will be, the political parties we have in Nigeria, have they presented to us their best candidates? Have they presented to us the candidate that Nigeria is really looking out for? When I can always buy my way. Most of them adopted the indirect mode of primaries. And we know it's money changing,
I wish I had an answer.
Dollar moving around.
I wish I had an answer to that very big question that you've asked, because at the end of the day, Nigerians will have to vote the candidate the parties have presented, right? So let's talk quickly. Let's talk quickly in the next minute. I want to ask you about we've got just a few minutes to go. The third force is a thing. However, there are concerns about if the third force can pull the weight needed to, no Femi D, why are you like that? Why are you like that? Why are you like so you're all going to take 1 minute Abayomi. You're all going to take 30 seconds round and tell me what your thought is about this third force. Again, like Ufuoma mentioned, it appears to be fueled by Nigerians who have just had it enough with inflation, with politics, with governance issues, with ASU strike. They're just tired and they want a game changer. But does this look like this third force will be it? Abayomi, you go first. Let me give you a lineup. After you, Femi D. After that, Emmanuel. After that, Ifiemi, and then Ufuoma. Let's go.
Yeah, the same way we were tired in 2015.
Right.
That brought about the present administration. The same way we shouted then. The same way we were presented with an angel, in quotes.
Yeah.
For me, the third force, is it between LP or NNPP, which they have not agreed?
They haven't.
Will Ekwabaso agreed
to step down for Peter Obi. Yeah.
To be vice to Peter Obi. And will Peter Obi agree to be a running mate to Ekwabaso? That is the question.
Now, another question to layer on that, Femi D, is to ask, if Peter Obi agrees to be the vice president to Kwakwanso, will his supporters continue with this energy for him as vice president?
This is the answer. This thing that about me just now.
No. For those who are not watching live, you are missing a lot.
But let me share my perspective. I think we're looking at the candidates, we're looking at the parties, but the citizens are not looking at themselves. Abayomi laid the foundation for what I wanted to say. There is a character we have when we had NSAS. There's a character when we had what's that protest we had in Lagos about price increase in fuel price or no fuel subsidy at that time. There's a character we had. There's a character we had when it was time for President Buhari, whether he should lead or not, whether he was going to be a favored candidate. There's a character we have around the third force now.
Yeah.
Guess what is very common among those characters? The results never come. That's all I'll say.
Oh my goodness. I mean, when you mention NSAS, you mention Occupy Nigeria, you mentioned all the, I think you just said it. Let me go on to Emmanuel. Come on. Do you think that, do you think Peter will be able to do it?
So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to somehow answer this question. And I'm going to start with this. Okay, so the whole popularity, so to speak, the whole trend right now, the whole thing that is instigating the whole conversation we're having about the third force is all lies on one person, which is Peter Obi right now.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Senator Kwankwaso about this situation, and he said categorically, I have the structure. I have the structure. I'm just saying it the way he said, I have the structure. So if he's saying, I have the structure, meaning, there is high possibility. We still had the same conversation with Don Yokupe, and he reiterated that the people at the north, they want to be at the forefront of it. But with the situation of Nigeria right now, they are not looking at his character. They're not looking at his structure. They are looking at that man, Peter Obi. You see, so if he is led to be, the person at the forefront, which I personally, I think will be the best decision. It will be the best thing. He will have the whole thing, and the third force will actually
be, may not be, it could be.
It could be. Exactly, it could be.
It could be. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it for a fact. I'm just saying it could be.
Yeah.
You understand? But then, if it is the other way around, I really do not think the reception that they are enjoying right now would be received that way.
Let me go on to Ifemi. Our time is almost up. Ifemi, do you think that again now it appears to be structure versus people? So would the people overthrow the structure? Would they follow Peter Obi whether he's presidential candidate or vice president? What do you think?
First question is Kwankwaso's structure, I think, ends in the north. And that's the problem many have said.
But North
so,
is
for me, I'll look at this.
The North is a game changer in voting in Nigeria. Remember, they've got the numbers.
This is where I'm coming to. That brings me to my next point. My next point would be in the North, the vote will be divided. Atiku is going to get votes. APC, Tinubu will get votes from the North because of the APC. So he would get votes as well. So that means the vote in the North divided. In the West, we know a large number of the votes would definitely go to Tinubu, unless some miracle would happen. All right. And then when you come to the South, even in the Southeast, they're not united with regards to Peter Obi as it stands. And in the South itself, you already know that, the structure the PDP has and the support they have with Atiku, and then Okowa as his running mate would naturally want to, go towards that direction. But then again, that's where it puts Peter Obi. I think the majority of Nigerians who are online, on Twitter and all of that, if we come out and vote, we would not have the number to give him victory at the end of the day, because the majority of the people who would give him victory are those who are not on Twitter, do not have light, are not usually watching TV, and that's where we stand at the moment. And remember as well, sorry to just put this in, he became governor of Anambra State without a structure. That's Peter Obi.
Okay, let's see if he's able to do that. Ufuoma, you've got 30 seconds. 30. Ufuoma, you have 30 seconds.
I will try and do this
Okay.
as quickly as possible. What I'm going to say to the majority of Nigerians listening to this show right now is that underrate Peter Obi at your own peril. That's what I'm going to say.
Facts.
The 2023 election is going to be one of the most unpredictable elections ever we've had in this country. I'm not sticking my neck to say this person will win or that person would win. To a large extent, the Southwest will vote en masse for the APC. Northwest and Northeast most likely for the PDP because of their candidate. The Southeast, I disagree with Ifiemi. They would majorly vote for Peter Obi. The South is not homogeneous, so it's going to be shared. The North Central, same thing. It means that to a large extent, you cannot predict what's going to happen. And I love the fact that Electoral Act 2022 would reduce a lot of rigging that has characterized Nigerian elections prior to now. So 2023 game changer. And I like the fact that a lot of persons are going out to get their PVCs. But again,
now you need to wrap up. Now we need to wrap up. We can make you a promise.
Somebody is going to be a placeholder.
let me make Nigerians a promise on behalf of everyone who's joined me today and on behalf of Nigeria Info across the country. We are the station to watch out for. For everything election, we're going to get to you. We're going to cover every detail across the country. So if you want to know what's going on pre-election, during election, post-election, it's Nigeria Info. I want to thank you guys for joining the very first edition of our national roundtable across our Nigeria Info platforms. Femi D from Abuja, thank you. Bola Abayomi, thank you very much. Ufuoma Egbamuno, head of news, Lagos. I just said Abuja. You're not going anywhere. Thank you, Ufuoma. Emmanuel Onwuka, our reporter in Lagos, thank you very much. Ifiemi Andrews from Port Harcourt, thank you very much. That's the show. Don't worry. Roundtable continues tomorrow from 2 p.m. and it's going to be here. So just watch out. You can watch on all of our platforms across Nigeria. My name is Wemimo Adewuni. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Have a great day.
You know what's in Port Harcourt.
My name is Anal Obeviri.
I'm Gabriella.
My name is Ade.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria